Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. So in this video we are going to study about classes. What are inline function, what are outline function, what are member function, and what are non-member functions. So first of all, let's create the project. So first of all, when you open the Visual Studio Code, you have to click on create a new project, select double click on empty project, and if you want to change the location, you should change, and if you want to change the name, just change the name. Let's say classes, and create a new project. So it will take you to the page of Visual Studio Code. So now here you will go to the if you want to do the work in 3 file structure, click on header file, add new, click on header file. If you want to change name, you can change name from here, else create add. It will create a header file. So let's create a class. If for any inconvenience, you can also use using namespace std or hashtag include iostream, but since we are not going to see out any statement, let's ignore that. So create a class. Class is a keyword here used. This class is a keyword predefined in C++ libraries of Visual Studio Code. Now after the keyword, you will write the name of the class. Let's say example class, and these brackets. So after you have created a class, make sure that this semicolon is present here because it defines the class. Also, if you want to use the predefined libraries of Visual Studio Code, you can simply write class and go to this, select this. It will give you a structure, a complete structure that you can use. So you may also consider it, but we will use our defined one now in C++. When we use classes, the classes are predefined. It is like everything you define is private, public. So you have to write private. You do not need to write private because everything is predefined. Early it is private, so if you write it or do not write it, it does not matter. But let's continue to write. So whatever we write in the private section, it will be only be accessible within the scope of the class within these brackets. After this bracket, whatever you type here is unaccessible. Let's write int x and y. Now public, to use it publicly even outside the class. First of all, whenever you create a class, you have to define its constructor, or if you do not define a constructor, whenever you create a new object, the C++ or the Visual Studio Code itself create a default constructor of the class. So it is not necessary, if you do, it is not mandatory to create a class constructor, but if you create, it is a better programming habit. So let's create a constructor ex, and simply this. If you want to initialize in it, x is equal to y equal to 0. So we have initialized. So this is a default constructor. Default constructor. So they are different type of constructors. So if we again use this and we write int a, int b, so this is a parameterized constructor. So you can use the variables to initialize the above private members. X is equal to a and y is equal to b. So now after declaring a parameterized constructor and default constructor, you can also create other parameterized constructor. Like if you create this is 2 argument constructor, you can create 1 argument constructor, you can create more, even 3, 4, 5, any much argument constructor. So after default constructor, what thing is important is a default destructor. There is nothing difference between the default constructor and destructor, only this tilde sign here, it is the main difference that defines a destructor. So if you want to create a destructor, all you need is to write a tilde sign in front of the class name, so it will create automatically the destructor. So you can define it like delete x, or even if you leave it empty, it will be defined itself. It is similar to the default constructor. If you do not define it, the C++ will define it automatically. So if we the next our topic is member and non-member functions. So let's see, the private members of the class are known as member variables, whereas all the functions are, let's write a function void print. So here we have created a void function. It will only see out x equal to x and y equal to y. This is a inline member function. Whenever you define a function within the scope of the class, it is a scope of the class. The function is known as inline member functions. Okay, so this is giving error because we haven't created the IOStream library defined, so ignore it. So before we go that, what is member function? Member functions are everything else. As you see, the member variables which are defined within the scope of the class are known as member variable, and the class and the functions which are within the scope of the class are known as member functions. So to remove the error, let's write include IOStream using namespace std. So as you see, the error is gone. So if you want to declare an outline function, you only need to declare the prototype. Let's say display. We have defined it, but we are going to declare it outside the function. So whenever you want to declare an outline function, you will first write the class name, return type, which is void class name, sample class, and you will define using the scope operator. You will call the function, and here you will define it. So let's copy the print function here. So it will work the same as the inline function print. It is working here. So the only difference it makes is that it is defined outside the scope operation. A better technique which is preferred is to create an inline function, but if you want to sell your code, you are advised to create an outline function. So till now, if you're learning, you should not create an outline function, only you should prefer creating inline function. But to get a knowledge, you should know how it is defined. So in source, let's create a source file using the 3 file structure. Create we have like wrongly created the header file. Create a source file, new item, cpp. It has created a source file. So now let's define the libraries. In spite of writing, let's copy them from here. You should reduce your work smarter instead of harder. So now we will simply include the header file, include double. Remember this one thing, that whenever you are going to include your header file or the user defined header files, code or classes, you will use, instead of the angular brackets, you will use these semicolons. So when you will create it, the Visual Studio will give you options, so you can enter the same, or else if it does not gives you the, you can simply write double slash and you can select from here. Now since it is defined, let's write int main. You should remember that main can also be created void, which we will write it in because we are going to return a value. Instead of returning a value, we will just simply call the functions. So how we create an object, let's create an object. If you don't know, there's no need to worry. To create an object, simply write the class name, that is example. We created example class. As you can see, when you link the header file, it simply gives you suggestions from the header file attached. So to create object, simply write the name of the class and then the name of the object. Let's create obj1. This simply object is created. To call the functions within the class, you will write obj, the object's name, dot, and it will give you the menu. So since the print was inline function and obj.1.display was outline function, let's call them. So here you can see there is no error. Both can be called in the same way, but the only difference they have is that one is outline and second is inline. It does not give any difference. So since it is a int function, you have to return a value. Let's return 0. Whenever you return 0, it terminates the function. So let's play the program. You will see both will print the same values. Since we haven't defined any value, it will give an error. It will give 0. As why? You may be thinking of why it has given us a 0, because when you see, you haven't given any values. We have defined the class member variables x and y to 0. So if we pass a is equal to, instead we will call the parameterized constructor here. So let's call, even we can call it here 5, 7. So when we call it, it will see out x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7, x is equal to 5, y is equal to 7. So all you need to do is write the arguments with the object. It will go to the parameterized constructor. So another thing that is necessary is whenever you create an object, it calls the default constructor. It itself creates a default constructor if there is no default constructor, and it itself it builds, it also creates a default destructor if there is no destructor already created. So let's write a cout statement so we can see what happens. Cout deleted, and so what happens will you will see, we are not going to call it, but the function itself has called the function, because the default constructor and the destructor and constructor are called itself by the C++. So it was up till here. I hope you learned something new. So if you do, please like, subscribe and comment. Thank you.